Hi, I'm Dan Lagani with Silver Solutions, the home-related service company for families with aging parents. In today's episode of AgeWise, we speak to New York Times reporter and best-selling author John Leland about happiness. His book, Happiness is a Choice You Make, is a fascinating read. And John, welcome to today's show.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it.
John, I know that the book was based on a series of articles that you did for the New York Times, looking at a group of 6 of the so-called oldest of the old. Tell us about how the idea for the article series came about.
In 2015, we were looking at the census, U.S. Census, the 2010 U.S. Census, and the number that kept popping out at us was the growth of the 85 and up population. They were, by different ways you look at it, they were either the fastest or among the fastest growing populations in the country. And I felt that we didn't know very much about them because we don't see them in the newspaper, we don't see them on TV shows, they don't have their own sitcoms. So in 2015, I spent a year following 6 people. They were different levels of mobility in different classes, in different races, different sexual orientations. And we didn't really know what we would find.
You make a comment in the book that I'll paraphrase, that being an expert was exhausting and being a student is like sitting at the banquet at a great restaurant. Tell me about that and what you meant in the context of writing this book.
Well, at a certain point, I realized that I did not know what it was like to be 85 and that these people did know. And I got to not be that New York Times reporter expert on a topic, and just to sit and learn from people who knew something and sort of shut down my own inner critic and not try to wonder whether what they're telling me was correct. And they were just let them describe their experiences. And it's something we seldom get a chance to do.
So you spoke to 6 different, I guess technically 7, because one of them was a couple, different people over the age of 85. Was there anything that you saw consistently across the group that differentiated the oldest old, as we spoke about a second ago, from someone that may be 65 or 75? Are there inherently differences in the groups based on age?
I think there was they were resigned or accepting of their mortality in ways that I don't see out of 65-year-olds necessarily. And I'm 61, so I'm pretty close to that group. There was this sense that your life was what you could do, not what you'd lost, what you'd had to give up.
As I listened to it, it almost sounds a lot like some of the tenets of Stoicism, the sense that you can make a choice to how you respond to a situation and that the circumstances themselves don't necessarily have a predefined response. So is it fair to say that the oldest of the old almost have a Stoic perspective on life?
Well, I'm not an expert in Stoicism, but I think this is a very interesting experience I had. I did a lot of speaking after publishing the book in 2018. I spoke at a yeshiva medical school, and someone came up to me, an Orthodox man came up to me and said, "You talk more Torah than most of the rabbis out there." And I spoke with some Buddhists who found Buddhism in it. And I've spoken with some friends in 12-step programs who found that a lot of what I have to say coincides with what they learn in 12-step programs.
The portrait that comes across in the book, and that obviously began in the article in the New York Times, or the series of articles in the New York Times, is of people that are much more interesting and rich in life than the stereotypes. So why does it seem like there's a stereotype of the grumpy old man, or the proverbial story of the woman who sprays water on the kids that run on the lawn when they go to grab a ball, versus the very rich portrait that winds up coming across in your book?
I think we're understandably afraid of our own decline and afraid of our own death, and that we project that upon other people. And it doesn't reflect that well on us, but I think it's understandable. I have to tell you that I went into this project thinking that that's what it was going to be like, that I was going to document the hardships and miseries of getting old in America. I really saw the articles as a series of malady of the month articles. As I went along, the elders really taught me how to write about that. how to tell their stories because they were the experts at telling these stories. And when I finally got smart and listened to them and let them tell their stories, they were just so much richer and more fascinating than the ones I thought I had to tell.
Tell us a little bit about the six people or some of the six people that you spoke to and highlights of what is obviously a very rich catalog of information.
I'll tell you a little bit about some of them. Like Fred Jones was one of the first people I met, and he was a dirty old man. Fred was always hilarious. He always had like a dirty story to tell. And Fred was always in a good mood, living what looked to anyone on the outside like a pretty difficult life. Helen Moses, I think, had the courage to find the second love of her life in a nursing home. Jonas Mekas was a Lithuanian Holocaust survivor. I went to a reading he did one time in a packed jazz club on like a Saturday afternoon on a snowy day in New York. And he's reading and it says, "Have you ever thought about how amazing, really amazing life is?" And I think there was like this laughter in the crowd because no one's used to hearing this from a 92-year-old Holocaust survivor, how amazing life is. But Jonas was just inspiring. So those are just three of them. The other three are equally fascinating. John Sorensen is a gay man who missed his partner of 60 years. And Ping Wang lived on $700 a month of Social Security. Couldn't afford she couldn't afford her pain medication. And the last one is Ruth Willig. And Ruth is still here, and she's had her first vaccination for the coronavirus, and she's made it through this year, and she's just a complete trooper. She turned 97 in November.
John, talk about your own experience as a caregiver with your mom and how it either mirrored what you found speaking to these elders that you did interviews with, or whether it differed. What was the relationship like for you as a caregiver with an older mom?
My mother, wonderful person. I love my mother. She was a somewhat gloomy person, and she said, if you want to know what old age is like, it stinks. And I would try to convince her otherwise and convince her that she was wrong. And as I spent time with the elders, I began to appreciate what they were giving me and what my mother could be giving to me. So my mother sort of went from being this project that I worked on to being my lunch date. And that was just a much better situation.
Part of what we try to do at AgeWise is have conversations like this that help families who have an aging parent become more aware of the things that they need to know as their parents get older. Any last thoughts, any other ideas that you'd like to share with some of those older adults about the things that will help make them a better caregiver or just better son or daughter to their mom or dad as they get older?
I think the first thing that they can do is remember to listen. And it's not that easy a thing to do. And the more we think of the relationship as an exchange, as an equal exchange where they're giving us things and we're giving them things, the better that relationship is.
What a wonderful set of insights. John Leland, New York Times reporter, New York Times bestselling author of the book, Happiness is a Choice You Make. John, how can people get a copy of the book? What's the easiest way?
It's on any of the online services, and that's really the best way to get it.
If you like this episode of AgeWise, you can find more on silversolutions.com, all of our episodes. And please, by all means, share today's episode with any friends that you think may benefit from it. I'm Dan Lagani, and for all of us at Silver Solutions who work hard every day to keep your parents safe and happy as they grow older, be wise and stay safe.